all my book lovers, don't go away. Stay right till the end because I have something special for you. Hey everyone, it's Habiba and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do a little story time with me. I'm going to be reading you one of my short stories. So this story of mine, it's called The Desert Blues. It was a finalist in the 2020 Bristol Short Story Prize. It was also highly commended for the Manchester Fiction Prize in 2018, and in 2019 it was a finalist for the Writers Union of Canada Fiction Prize. So I'd like to dedicate this reading to Khadija Sako from Sierra Leone. May her soul rest in peace. I'll leave her story in the description box so you can learn more about it. So let's jump right into it, and don't forget to get yourself a nice cup of tea. I have my cup of tea here. So here we go. Desert Blues. She kept walking, tightening the indigo fabric around her body. There in the depths of the Sahara, where sand blanketed the earth, she noticed her dripping so much. So she chose to walk at night, when the blackness hid her shame. The moon was her compass. She thought of her life up until now. They had lost their baby, she her fertility and her ability to walk properly, and her dignity too, because the urine kept coming, and she couldn't help that she was revolted by the smell of her own feces. They met each other for the first time at their wedding. He promised he would love her, and he did. She wouldn't have chosen anyone else had she been able to choose. Sadio's soul was light, and she knew that he really loved her. She could see it in the way his eyes softened whenever he looked at her. She had never known that anything could be more painful than her wedding night, because a few years before she was cut and then sewn so tightly that only a small space was left to allow urine and her monthly menses to flow. And then all at once, her stitches opened up, and she had never felt so open before. But it was an uncomfortable kind of open, an open that made her remember the pain of losing her father, of being told she could not go to school because she was a girl, of having to queue for hours to receive millet flour and salt given to her family by the Americans. She remembered the way her uncles looted their house upon her father's death, taking everything except his prayer beads. Those beads, the only inheritance she had from him. She grasped them now, ran her fingers over them, invoking the name of God, the merciful one, Rahman. So when her belly started growing some weeks after their wedding, she promised that her baby girl would never be cut, that she would never know the pain of being closed, only to be opened again. Rugi had an unforgiving labor, a 4-day labor. But on the 4th day, after forcing her way into the world, that sweet girl who had danced in her belly for 9 months was all at once still. Sadio said he was not sad at all, that it was the will of God. But Rugi could read the disappointment on his face. One morning, a couple of months after they had released their baby girl to the spirit world, Rugi woke up to a mattress that was wet, soiled, not just with urine, but with feces too. Soon, it was not only the constant dripping that tormented her. Her right foot had become numb, and she could barely walk. Sadio found a stick and gave it to her to use as a cane. He told her not to worry, that he would save enough money to take her to a hospital where she would find help. She thought that things might just get better, until Sadio's parents told her she had to leave. They could not stand her smell and the fact that she had failed to give their son a child. They told Sadio that he must divorce her and find a new wife to have his children. But Sadio loved Rugi. They would go to the desert, first to Mali, then to Niger, and on to Algeria, from where they would be among thousands of migrants who would pay traffickers to get them into Europe. Lampedusa, he had told her. They would have a better life in Europe, and she would find a doctor to make her dry again. After crossing through Niger, they were handed over to a new group of traffickers, stern men in blue turbans. They refused to let Rugi onto the truck. Her smell revolted them, and they would not travel the 2,000 kilometers to Algeria with her in the back. Take her or give us back our money, Sadio had insisted. They refused. His pleas were lost to the abysses of the Sahara. Sadio left Rugi in a small Tuareg village in Agadez. He would go to Algeria on his own and demand that those traffickers take them. They had to. They had taken their money. The chief had a tent pitched for Rugi at the edge of the village. The little ones would leave meals outside her tent and sneak coy glances her way, curious to know more about their visitor, though they dared not tarry, or else their mother, Asalama, would soon appear, warning that they would catch a disease from going too close to the sick woman. Eventually, Asalama, who had scoffed at Rugi since her arrival, informed her that her condition could be treated in Nigeria. Weeks passed, and then months. Sadio had not returned. He had promised he would come back for her, but it did not seem he was coming, and she could not wait any more. So one day, on the cusp of dusk, Rugi, dressed in her indigo cloths, steadied herself on her cane and told Asalama she would go to Nigeria. Asalama gave her an absent-minded half-nod and turned away as she hobbled into the night. She did not know that even the wives of the pharaohs of old suffered what she was suffering, that a few hundred activists in Canada, Europe, and even in her own country were pressuring governments to act on her behalf. She did not know. How was a woman like her, gaunt, illiterate, disinherited, to know? She was alone. Obstetric fistula, that's what it was called. A hole in the birth canal caused by a complicated childbirth that left a woman without control of her urine or feces. She arrived in the town of Maradi, at the border between Niger and Nigeria. Two men, sitting on a log, observed her as she walked. It was not long before many people gathered to watch her, as a dotted trail of urine marked her path in the sand. A great truck pulled up beside her. Nervous, she quickened her pace. "Rugi!" A man jumped out of the truck and called out to her. She gasped and turned back to look at him. It was Sadio. "What are you doing, Rugi?" "Sadio, I couldn't wait anymore. How did you find me?" "When I went back for you, Asalama said you had left for Nigeria." "What took you so long?" "I'm sorry, Rugi. When I went to Algeria, the traffickers still refused to take you, so I had to work because I couldn't come back without enough money to get you to a doctor." The driver told them to hurry up. He wanted to reach Katsina before nightfall. Sadio helped Rugi into the back of the truck, and they crossed the border into Nigeria. Aminu knew she was coming. As he fingered his prayer beads, he could see the loss of something. It was not a baby. That he could see was already gone, but the loss of something else. He continued stroking his beads. A desert flower, blooming through parched earth, suddenly withers. And then he saw her, limp and emaciated, draped in indigo fabric, the kind Aminu had seen his mother and grandmother wear, the fabric that had traversed the desert for hundreds of years on the bodies of his nomadic ancestors. Her husband stood anchored beside her, the fear in his eyes betraying his strength. It was the fear of not knowing, of wanting, a fear that Aminu had seen in so many of the families who came to the clinic to seek help. "Honno Inatera," he smiled and asked her name. "Rugi." She met his eyes and steadied herself as much as her limp foot would allow. He beckoned her and Sadio to follow him into the clinic. Naja'atu, the nurse with the smiling eyes and the bent nose, spent the next 2 weeks feeding Rugi eggs, beans, and chicken to fortify her for surgery. She spoke to her in Fulani, as Dr. Aminu had when she and Sadio arrived. Rugi was in awe. Her people were everywhere. In Futa, where she came from, it was known that their people stretched as far as the famous Nile River. She had grown up hearing that from her grandmother and village elders. But it was her first time to leave Futa and discover the world that was beyond the rolling valleys and green mountains. They were a great tribe, a proud people who had conquered many and established empires. Yet there she was, a Fulani woman who could not hold her bowels, poor, homeless, wretched. And she wondered if that's what it meant to be a great people. On the day of the operation, Rugi was wheeled into a large room with whitewashed walls. There were screens and wires hooked up all around her. Everyone, including Sadio, wore light blue cotton shirts with matching trousers, the kind of clothing she had first seen health workers in her village wear when the Ebola disease devastated her country a few years earlier. Hours later, she awoke to a room ringing with excitement. "Congratulations, you are dry, Rugi," Dr. Aminu cheered. Naja'atu clapped, and Sadio's lips curved into a broad smile, his eyes glowing in jubilation. But Rugi, this time Dr. Aminu called her name so softly, as if to not wake a sleeping child. "I have to tell you that you will not be able to have children anymore." His words fell on her ears like sizzling balls of coal being dribbled through her flesh. The tears came like a quiet storm. Later that day, Sadio found her huddled in a corner of the courtyard, rocking back and forth, sobbing to herself in a hysterical murmur. He knelt down beside her and lay his head on her stomach. Indigo crept into the evening sky. "Rugi'atu, the bearer of good things," Sadio whispered into her ear. "The bearer of joy, Rugi, Sadio's love, the one who makes Sadio smile. Rugi, the bearer of life." That's all for now, friends. Thank you so much for tuning in, for watching. I'd love to hear your feedback. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you thought of that story. Is Sadio the best husband in the world? And so all of the finalists had their stories published in this anthology. Yep. I'll leave details down in the description box. Okay, thank you all. See you in my next video. Bye. Introducing Black in School, my latest book. Available at stores near you September 4th. Pre-order online now so you don't miss out. Until next time.
My city with Ciala, Tyler Picker.